Hello, good afternoon. I am Christopher Starling on behalf of Recognize Our Pride. I am the curator of In Life Archives 2.0, Oral History for Black Queer People. I am supporting and Recognize Our Pride. It's an honor to hear your stories, honor to be your witness. I want to thank you for giving me some time so I can hear your story, and hopefully other people can listen to it and get a witness from it. Cool?
I'm excited. Thank you for having me.
First, how do you pronounce your first name?
Kiersten.
Kiersten, perfect. So Kiersten, let's talk about how you identify yourself.
I identify as a Black queer woman, a lesbian. I'm really using the term lesbian a lot because I feel like it's going out of style and I want to bring it back. I feel like nobody
How's it
really
going out of style?
I don't hear people saying they're lesbians anymore.
Okay.
Have you heard people? I don't really hear it, especially from more femme-presenting women.
Yeah.
I don't hear it. And I'm like, what happened to the L word? I'm bringing the L word back. I'm trying to.
I know, because I worked at the Schomburg, and I know a lot of like historic Black lesbians like Cheryl Clark and Elizabeth DeVoe. Everybody I know, so like they say queerness and comes to talk about the community, but there's stuff is always like I'm gay, I'm a lesbian. Really.
But you said it yourself, historic. Like in my text, in my text and everything, lesbian for sure. Like in my historic text from the 70s, and this bridge called my back, third world women always say lesbians. I'm not hearing it anymore from the girls. I'm not nowadays.
I wonder why is that though? I wonder why that is.
I don't know. I think there's lesbiophobia probably. And also, but I think also maybe queerness is such a generalized term that it's good for everybody to get along. And also it's less gendered now. We're coming into a space of an era of us being less gendered. So maybe lesbian doesn't fit for everybody. But I personally feel that I'm a lesbian. And although I use she, they pronouns, I'm still identify as a woman who loves women. That doesn't mean that I can't date non-binary people, but I think lesbian is the correct term for me.
Talk to me how you got to that. How walk me through how you got to the clarity of who you think you are as a Black lesbian.
How did I get to being a Black lesbian?
Like using the word, like how you start identifying with being queer.
Oh, I was 13. I went to this sleepover.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. But isn't that how it all starts? Like, no, it was definitely at a sleepover.
Not me. Mine was in first grade.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where was yours?
First grade. I met a boy named Kwame.
Oh, where's Kwame at now?
Oh, I don't know.
Is Kwame gay?
I don't know.
The first boyfriend I had was in 5th grade boyfriend, and now he's gay. So, but I think it was just, I think I was at a sleepover. Yeah, I was at a sleepover. No, I had a crush on my 6th grade English teacher.
Okay.
It's always the English teachers. And then I went to church camp. I grew up in Virginia, and I went to church camp. And everybody was saying, we were all joking, like me and my little church friends, we were like, oh, who do y'all think is the cutest? Who do y'all think is the cutest? And we would just say their name. We would not say their names. We didn't know their names. We said their shirt color they were wearing.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody was like, oh, green shirt over there, like blue dress over there. And da-da. And I was like, black dress. And they were like, so, and they were like, and I remember my friend being like, it's okay, Kiersten, you're bisexual. You're going to go to hell, but we still love you.
Yikes.
And now she's gay.
What denomination was this that you grew up in?
Huh?
What denomination you grew up in?
Baptist.
Okay.
This was and it was called Eagle Eyrie. That was a church camp. And it was in the Appalachian Mountains of Virginia.
Okay.
It was really fun, but that's where I kind of was like, all right. And I started identifying as bisexual in the 7th grade. But that's because it was cool to be bisexual then. And then in high school, I was like, actually, I don't like guys. I don't know what this is. I had my first little boyfriend. He took me to my junior debutante and just real Black Southern things, Mm-hmm. He took me to my first junior debutante. He was a really nice guy. And I was a cheerleader and he was a football player. Mm-hmm. And we were in 10th grade and I wasn't really feeling him. I was like, I don't know why. I don't like kissing him. I don't really like he's great as a friend, but I don't really feel any way towards him.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed holding his hand and him taking me to class, but that's only because that's what popular kids did.
Mm-hmm.
I was not popular, but it seemed fun. And then what happened? I went to a sleepover and two girls were like trying to kiss me at the same time. They were roommates and they were much older than I was. And I guess they thought I was like cute or whatever. And I was so awkward and insecure. So I had no idea what I was doing. So I completely froze while they were like kissing me. And then they kind of like laughed it off and they were like, loosen up. And then I don't really remember the rest of the night. I'm pretty sure I probably passed out from excitement, but yeah.
It's hard being popular, Kristen.
Huh?
It's hard being popular, apparently.
Oh, well, I don't know how I got that experience. It's a very lucky experience.
Yeah.
I still look back like, whoa, not the two hot girls kissing me. Like I was so awkward and weird.
So did you find community in high school or did that come later in college?
No, not at all. I didn't find community in high school. I went to William and Mary. Actually, I went to William and Mary for my first 2 years of my bachelor's. Then I switched out to go to Spelman because I wanted a better film program and Spelman had the better opportunities there. And I also wanted to experience HBCU-dom. So I always say at William and Mary, I came into my queerness, which I did. It was fabulous. I was in all the gay organizations. I was on the board for Lambda, which was our queer organization. We had two. This was at William and Mary. One is at what was called Lambda, and that was like more of the social organization. And the other one, it was really funny. It was called William and Larry. And that was the more like legislative organization. I was on both committees, but I was an active board member on Lambda. So I say I came in, we threw parties and it was really fun. I came into my queerness at William and Mary, and I came into my Blackness at Spelman.
Say more about that. Say more about what that means to you.
Yeah. At William and Mary, I was free. There was a whole lot of, it was rural, but there was a whole lot of Black queer folk, more than I've ever met. And we had a really tight-knit community. I mean, we all did. The Blacks were very tight, the queers were very tight, and the Black queers within those circles were also very tight. So we got along everywhere. And there was very little homophobia that I know of in the Black community there. I think everybody was really cool, actually. And I was also very cool with the people in Greekdom there. Mu Epsilon is the chapter at William and Mary, and I think they might have invited me to like the pledge, but my GPA wasn't high enough. I was having too much fun doing Lambda stuff. I was having too much fun partying, and then I ended up leaving and going to Spelman for other reasons. And Spelman, it was less queer for me, even though because it was just too small, you know, Afrikiti.
Way less queer.
Way less people, and so like less queer and just a little bit more stifled. And then William and Mary at PWI, which, you know, I don't want to really speak on like, I don't think whiteness is more accepting of queerness than Blackness, but I do think that in certain spaces where you're asked to perform one way, and it's something expected of you because you have race on your shoulders, it might be a little bit harder to act out in the ways that you want. And I don't mean act out in a negative connotation. I mean like literally you just yourself.
Gender, I get it.
Yeah. And so I kind of noticed that more at Spelman, but I still had a good time, and the queers were out. I mean, the queers who knew what was up were out, who were coming on their
people who were queer on in D9 and William and Mary.
Yes. Yeah. I think Mu Up was pretty queer. Oh, sorry, Mu Up, if you're looking at this. I mean, I know y'all. So we had a good time. Yeah. I think the Blackness and the queerness were very an intersecting part of William and Mary, and I really enjoyed that. Spelman, less so.
Say more, give me an example.
I think Spelman has just more of a thing about elitism and classism. And unfortunately, queerness doesn't work too well in those spaces because it is seen as a barrier. So if you want to perform and be performative and be elitist, really, you're not going to be able to be truly your full self. And I think like I said, at William and Mary, I of course experienced racism, and you know, very like traumatic like racism, and a lot of us did. But at Spelman, I probably experienced the same amount of traumatic elitism and classism. So because of that, and because of the performative nature of Spelman, and then the performative nature of D9s in general, I mean, it is an elitist institution. The D9 is. I mean, you have to have a certain amount of money. A lot of times you have to have a look, and you have to have been to college, you know, to pledge. So it is very elitist. And I think Spelman being the pinnacle of HBCUs, and Delta being a very sought after organization to pledge, I think it could be very elitist, like buku elitist, like elitist.
500 girls that come
Where?
to run for HK, so it's a very selective
Yeah,
experience when you only have 35 spots.
right. It's elitist squared. So it's like,
So let's talk about your journey to Delta. So why did you join, or did you join?
My mother is a part of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and my father is a part of Omega Psi Phi.
Okay, cool, my love.
I know. I know.
You have feelings and thoughts.
It's very heteronormative. It's
Okay.
just so heteronormative. And I grew up in that environment, super like, he was very much like, and she was very much like, and they got together in all of their compulsory heterosexuality and had my little gay ass. And it was just like, they still
what was that like growing up in that household like that?
It was hard, yeah, because I was queer, you know, like I was queer. I'm still very queer. I don't really know if people look at me and know that I'm queer or like whatever, but I know that something about my spirit was just queer. Like I always say, if I was in a man's body, as much as I like women, I would be queer too. Like it doesn't matter what body I'm in. I think my spirit is a queer person. And I think they recognize that. There's certain people who are just, you know, have that spirit. I think queer people are beautiful, but we're a people. And I think they recognize that queerness in me and didn't know what to do with it, and still don't.
So what was that? What was the coming in and inviting in story?
Sorry?
What was the inviting in story, the coming out story? Since they didn't know what to do with you.
Oh, I was in high school and I was like, they asked me. I think I was outed, and then they had asked me, "Are you queer? Are you gay?" And I said yes. And they were like, "Well, it's just a phase." And then I was like, "Well, then why ask me? I'm telling you what it is." And it wasn't too supportive, no. It was more like, "We're gonna love you." But they didn't really know what that meant. So it's just, and then yeah, so that's still something hard to deal with, because I did pledge because I had that expectation from my mom. And my mom, I won't go too much into it, I won't say her name, but she was like on the national board growing up, you know, like Delta. So I was at every convention since I was like 12 years old, and I knew all the people, and like I was just, you know, growing up in that, I was very much expected to then pledge. And when I did decide to pledge, that was I was performing out of that mentality, out of that that mentality of, this is what I need to do to uphold, like to make my mother proud and all this stuff. And it was a lovely experience, fabulous, great experience. But also very hard, because I had those hardships with my family anyway. I was trying to prove, and I think I was proving myself in a way that neglected who I really was. So a lot of growth has since come from me after leaving university and after pledging, where I'm able to have both identities and be comfortable in both. But at first it was very uncomfortable, and I was always neglecting one side of me. I hope
did intake or as an interest, did your queerness ever become an impediment to your interest in Delta?
Did my queerness
become an impediment to your interest in Delta?
Was I like, oh, I have to join this one because they're queer?
No, like I'm worried about me being visibly queer, performing gender in some kind of way.
Oh yeah.
Would that get in the way? Because in Morehouse, when I went, there were boys who had beards to get on for other things, because they were worried about how they present on campus, right? They did certain majors, right? Like there was a boy at Clark who was a fashion merchandising major who came out Alpha, we were like, how? Because you had to be like a bio major, English or business or religion to like be on the radar of potential candidates. So if you looked visibly queer and or were studying something that involved some level of otherness, that people were mindful of when they started showing interest. I wonder, you being fully formed queer at 14, going to marry, kind of being clear yourself, I wonder how was that like kind of joining an organization that you said is very heteronormative?
Yeah.
Narrative.
Well, right. I hear what you're saying. I got it. Spelman was that anyway, so I was already operating out of a certain this is one way I will act, but when I'm at the gay parties, this is another way that I'm being. But so I was already used to that. I'm sure it was, but I never hid me being queer. I actually thought it maybe added to my resume. I was like, ooh, this one's a little spicy. I was like, this one's a little like, get some diversity up in there. Maybe. I feel like I was the gay hire. You know how you have like a black hire and a job? I feel like I was the gay.
There are no other queer members of HK?
In my particular
line, my experience is different. So I'm always curious because if we did a qualitative research study on like who has a worse time joining and because of the queerness, women usually have a different experience, especially Delta, because Delta generally is like, is she dope? Can she do the work? What are her grades like? Yeah, those things trump. We know somebody may have a feeling about so being queer, usually, right? Right. Wondering, and also oftentimes too, there's somebody older than you who didn't necessarily wasn't queer on campus, but they became queer later. So when things come back down, people are like, oh, well, let's get out of the way of this thing. I'm not sure. So I was wondering what the experience was like sharing your queerness with your chapter, your line sisters, pro-fights.
I mean, it wasn't a problem, no. And it wasn't a problem. And there were other queer members before me, and there were other queer members on my particular line. I feel like I was the maybe most outspoken gay one.
Got it.
But that's just because I came from a college already where I could have done that, been outspoken, and I was also a good like member of Alpha. Like they knew who I was out here with. I think I came to one of the interest meetings holding my girlfriend's hand at the time. Like, you know, it was fine.
Dope.
It was fine. Like it wasn't a problem.
Dope.
I think the problem I had most wasn't with my queerness. It was most with me even like making the decision and like interacting in a D9 space because of the relationship with my mom.
Got it.
Yeah. But the girls, everybody on the line, they were cool with.
Yeah, and also my question wasn't meant to find something wrong. It was also just offering you opportunity to talk about actually how it wasn't an issue and it was fine. Because again, like I've interviewed a lot of people and a lot of people have had horror stories, but also want to make sure everybody loved me, it was fine, and it's regular to be also part of the story too, because they often aren't the same kind of like amplification around those stories. Like always like, oh no, well this person beat me up, or it was always some kind of trauma around it often. And so I love hearing about how it was mad regular and no, we fine. Like
I'm here to tell you for your little video bite, a little sound bite. HK was cool with the gays.
That's dope. I mean, they were cool with the male gay people at Morehouse, so I would have hoped that transformed or translated to intake as well.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure they were gay them damn selves.
So how did you? I'm not even. So where do you feel the most safe as a Black lesbian?
Where do I feel the most safe? In my my intentional queer communities that I've intentionally curated as I've grown.
And how did you curate them?
I'm still working on it. It's a lifelong process, but I have stuck with the friends who I know and the family who I know have my back, who I know care for me, who I know are genuine and kind people, who understand that life is to be lived and it's supposed to be beautiful, and everything else, that's hard. That's what community is there for. So building community in order to support one another, regardless of our identities, and just being a kind, genuine person who has empathy, that's the people I look for, and that's the people I choose to keep in my life.
I sure. What brings you the most joy about being Black and queer?
Ooh, I think we're fabulous, and I think we're beautiful and smart, and we have all of these intersections. We have, like, you hear W.B. Du Bois talk about double consciousness. We have triple and quadruple consciousness. It's lovely to be able to work out of all of these different identities and navigate the world with the power, as long as we know that we do hold that agency. It's hard when we realize, if we let the world get to us and hold us down, but if we use all of those identities that we have and make it a source of power and our strength, oh my God, it's so lovely. I think we're I think we're great. We're hot. We're it.
What is one thing Delta could do to make it safer, more inclusive, more freeing for people who are Black and queer?
I think maybe more conversation that definitely centers and is led by trans people. I think we could do better with that legislation. There's a lot of gay people, queer people, lesbians who are transphobic. And it's like, I'm not trans. I don't identify as trans, but I think it's a moment for trans people to come forth and speak and be able to speak and have spaces for themselves. And we need to listen, So it's great.
Is that in context to trans membership, or is transness generally?
Transness in general, I think Black community, we can do a better job of making sure that we're listening to our trans kin, but also, membership. What does that conversation look like? And do trans people even want to join? And also, if they have joined our sorority and fraternities anyway, like when they're transitioning, what does that support look like? Because I don't imagine that many trans people are like, ooh, let's go to these heavily gendered sororities and fraternities, So like, if that's the case, and then people realize throughout their matriculation in life that they want to transition, how can we support those folks? How can we make it more open to everyone anyway? I also don't know if I want trans people to necessarily be in the spaces that we hold, because it would be violent towards them.
Sure.
Like, I don't feel safe. Like, I wouldn't even want to invite a trans person to like some of the spaces that I'm in that have to deal with D9. Just like sometimes I don't feel like it's safe for gay people necessarily.
For sure.
So
yeah, that's why I hope that conversations like this on social media or in general can begin people to kind of imagine what's possible. Because again, I remember going to a panel once on the history of Black organizations in the 21st century, and the guy was like, well, as long as people are not coming into organizations trying to find partnership, and I was like, who's doing that? I don't know anybody who was queer looking for a partner in their org. That's not a thing. Yeah, some people may have dated somebody in an org later in life, or kind of found somebody who they didn't know was a part of the org when they met them, but joining to find a partner is wild. But straight people don't know anybody's story who's queer. They have probably know somebody in the chapter or in the area who's queer, but they don't know what the experience is. So similar as like if I'm a Black person who's trans and identify as male, I go to Morehouse. Black man, cis or trans, I probably desire to be a part of whatever I should be a part of, right? Be it the Urban League, NACP, and maybe Alpha. Why not? Like that's part of what you expect any Black man to want to be a part of. But the trans doesn't change that conversation. But I have a little more access, so.
Period. Yeah. I'm like, I don't think people are trying to do that, straight folks. Like, I don't think they're really putting their neck on the line to meet the queers in the D9 organization when they're initially interested in joining, knowing that it has been historically exclusive. And not even historically exclusive, because I don't even want to say that. Some of the founders, not me spilling the tea, but come on now.
But also, most people don't know the history, right? Like, County Cullen was an Alpha, he was queer. His line brother or Neo was his longtime partner. Like, there's a lot of queerness in the organizations. It's just
initially.
it's an invisible life, right? The world within the world that people don't talk about, don't deal with, and there's not always community around that. There's some level of shame, some level of guilt, some level of compartmentalizing that part of your life over there. Typing up that did it in college, or that's when I wasn't as free, or I'm not doing that today. I'm not wearing that hat today, so I'm gonna wear parallel. Whatever the thing is, it kind of other this experience they had and kind of deal with this other thing later.
Yeah.
And I hope that being online would support somebody to kind of like being more free, being supported, being community, getting loved up on like you belong to me type thing.
Yeah.
And it's queer.
Yeah. I think we wear, like you said, different hats at different times. And sometimes when we're in spaces that may seem exclusive, we have a certain hat on. And when we're in freer, more liberating spaces, we have that hat on. We carry these hats with us all the time, but the ones that we present at a certain moment is like different. And I say that to say there are so many queer people in the United, some that we are aware of, some that we're not aware of, because queerness is just so prevalent in human life anyway. So it doesn't, I think I used to be very outspoken. I was like, I am gay, I'm gay Black woman, and I'm still like sort of like that, but only because now there's like crazy policies being passed and like don't say gay and like so many trans exclusionary things that it's just like it's important to be vocal about your politics. But I don't necessarily feel like I'm the loudest in the room anymore about my queerness, because it's like, okay, and so are we, like I hear other people and like older people too, older generations, who it wasn't important for them to be loud. They could very much have their own partnership going on and it not be known to the world, and that's where they felt safe. And I would never want to disrespect my ancestors who lived quieter gay lives by thinking that my way of being loud is the best way to be.
Yeah. I also want to empower people who are part of D9 to just show up more for the room. Because I feel like even if you didn't share your journey with your mother and your relationship and your experience with Delta as a child, you still show up as Delta, right? The conviction, the power, whatever that means. So to do that and then still and be also openly queer can be transformative, right? Like you on a panel somewhere or doing a film or whatever you're doing with your life, and including that part of the conversation, that somebody in the room will be like, oh, I could. Like, there's an example of what Delta could look like. That doesn't mean, and she's not small or afraid or less. She's all these things at one time and is proud of that shit. People don't often do that.
And that's where my film came in. If you've seen it, A Differently Curated World.
Okay.
Have you seen it?
No, I know. So
Okay, so maybe this is where you plug it in.
Yeah, it's cool.
But no. So A Different World.
Yes.
The whole theme song. I redid the theme song for that, and I placed Black queer predecessors throughout each scene, because A Different World, it has that iconic scene where it goes through each room and there's different things happening in each room. So I did that, but in each room it was a different time period in Black queer history featuring a Black queer person. And in one of them I had the founders, Lucy Diggs Slow of AKA, co-founded AKA, was with her partner Mary Burrell, and they were both prevalent in the Harlem Renaissance, and I think one of them was the first dean of women at Howard, and one of them was a founder of AKA, and they were in a relationship together for many years. Their house in DC is now a historical site for LGBTQ folk and Black folk. So I had Gladys Bentley in there, who wasn't a part of a D9, but I featured a lot of us who were D9. I had a Delta there that I played who was a prevalent member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, who had relationships with women as well.
Which woman?
Sorry.
What woman is this? Which woman is this?
This is, oh my God, who did I play? I want to show it to you. Can I share my screen?
Not right now. So I'm going to see it when we do the interview. I want to see it.
Okay, cool.
I'll plug this up. You are a filmmaker. I'm going to want you to plug where the people can watch this this film you created. Also, where can the people follow you at?
Oh, sorry. That was me trying to look up the name of the woman.
No worries.
Because that's terrible. I don't know her name, but I played her and she was cute and she was a Delta and I'm a Delta and we both queer and we met in somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I didn't.
No, I'm a filmmaker.
I didn't know Patty Murray was an honorary Delta. I didn't know that until I saw her papers came to the Schomburg once. Like somebody had a second paper that included her in it, and I was going through guys who worked in archives, and I was like, "Oh, she's an honorary Delta." Like what? And
yes. Alice Dunbar Nelson is her name. That's the woman that I played. And she was married to the famous poet, I think Paul Dunbar.
Paul Lawrence Dunbar, yes.
Yep. And they were both bisexual. So, but Alice Dunbar Nelson was a Delta. And then Polly Murray too was a part of, and Polly Murray was trans, and that would be considered trans today. So,
which I think they identified as gay or as lesbian because they were also the founders, co-founders of like a lot of women's organizations, Black women's organizations. So yes, they in context to today's terms, they were considered trans and talked about their otherness that way, but they also officially were a part of these women organizations as a Black homosexual.
Yes. And then I think they ended up going to were committed themselves to a hospital because they had such strong feelings that they were able to. So maybe they were just non-binary. I don't think we need to put them in today's terms, but whatever they were queer.
But they were definitely queer, queer as fuck. Very, very queer. Yes, very, very, very queer.
Yes. So
documentary is really good though. Documentary is very dope, very good.
Oh, The Life of Polly Murray. Yeah. I haven't seen it, but it's on my list. But anyway, so my film covers all that. Anyway, I'm a filmmaker. I'm teaching film right now in Vermont, at the Putney School, which is a private boarding school. And I got my degree from Savannah College of Art and Design and my bachelor's in gender, sexuality, women's studies, and Africana studies from Spelman. So, I'm just trying to teach the people about the queerness and the Blackness and the intersection of it all, and just walking in your power with that and doing whatever that looks like for you. Just make sure whatever space you're in, whatever you're doing in this world, whatever your occupation you chose, however you're benefiting this world, I just want people to take a more intersectional lens with them and realize that people have been doing this forever and they should, see that as a source of strength and not be exclusionary in their views and be more inclusive. So learn the history, whatever that looks like.
Well, I want to end here and say thank you again for sharing your story. Thank you again for being so open and transparent about your journey. Let people know where they can follow you at, where they can support your work at.
Yeah, Kiersten. My Instagram is Kiersten, KIERSTENIS _ here. It's right there. Sorry, no, I'm just kidding.